All right, hey everyone. Today what we're going to be learning about is classifying triangles and the angle sum theorem. So let's get started with the top part. For triangles, we classify the triangles by their side lengths and also by their angle measurements. So let's focus more on the angle measurements. We're going to go over here. So one way to classify a triangle is by calling it an acute triangle. That means all angles are acute, which means that they are less than 90 degrees. So this guy's less than 90 degrees, this guy's less than 90 degrees, and this guy's all less than 90 degrees. So each angle, and they are not necessarily congruent, but each angle is less than 90. The next way to classify a triangle is by calling it an obtuse angle. In this case, you only have one angle that's obtuse, so that's an angle that is greater than 90. In this case, this angle is greater than 90, so since you have one angle that's obtuse, the entire triangle is an obtuse triangle. And in this case, you have a right triangle, so that means one angle is a right angle. So it has to be equal to 90 degrees. In this case, it is, do not assume, but if you were to zoom in, you see a little square here, and that little square in the corner is the notation for a right angle. And when you see a right angle, the whole triangle is called a right triangle. Now, you can also classify a triangle by their side length. So in this case, one would be called a scalene triangle if you have 0 sides that are congruent. And when we talk about congruent, another way would be meaning the same. So if you were to put one on top of the other, that they would be match up. Or it looks like an equal sign with a wavy line. That's the congruent notation or symbol. So in this case, you've got this side is not equal to that side, which is not equal to that side. So they're all different lengths. So if all the lengths are different, it is considered a scalene triangle. All right, next up we have an isosceles. On an isosceles, you have at least 2 sides are congruent. And remember, congruent means same. So in this case, this side and this side are, we could assume right now to be the same, and I'm going to show you how to mark that. So you would mark it by showing this guy and this guy are congruent, meaning they're the same length. So you would label that an isosceles triangle. And then lastly, you have an equilateral triangle. So if you see the word equal within there, that means all sides are congruent. So each side is the same. Right here, here, and here. So all your sides are congruent, and if you were to mark that, it would look like this, this, and that. So here, this side might be different than those two for your isosceles, but equilateral, all the sides. Now here's something that's important too. Equilateral can also be isosceles, because here we said at least 2, and an equilateral is 3. So an isosceles, or an equilateral, could also be an isosceles. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to classify each triangle as acute, right, or obtuse. I'm going to do the first one for you, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to figure out the others. So let's look at the first one. It says here, now I know it's a little blurry, but you have 41 as this angle. I'll write a little bit. So 41. You have 49. And then in this case, you have what looks like a square in the corner of the triangle. Well, it's not a little square, it's a right angle that's denoting a right angle. So since this right here is showing you it's a right angle, the entire triangle is a right triangle. All right, so you need to look at all of the angles, and if remember, if all the angles are less than 90, it's an acute. If one angle is obtuse, the whole triangle is obtuse. And if one angle has a right angle, then it's a right triangle. So go ahead, finish those. All right, we're going to come over here, and we're going to label it by the sides. So we need to look at the side lengths and see what is equal or which one's congruent, excuse me. So now let's look here. If I were to look at scalene, isosceles, or equilateral, let's look at the sides. I have 10 here. I have 13 here. And I have 14 here. So 0 sides are congruent, so that means that this is scalene. Now, remember the notation for the notes, so that's going to be your hint for this one and then for this one. So look back at the notes and then complete the other two. All right, lastly, we have triangle sum theorem. It is the sum, which means that you are adding, of the interior angles, so that's the angles in the inside, of the triangle are always equal to 180. So whenever you add this angle plus this angle plus this angle, it should equal 180. So that's all we got to do, is we've got to add these two angles together and then subtract from 180 to solve. So let's go ahead. This is 56 plus 37. So 93, but we're not done. Just these two right here are 93. So now we need to figure out what this guy is. So we have to take 180 minus the 93 we did before. And then that's going to give us 87. And so that means x is 87 degrees. So remember, all of the angles in your triangle, this one plus this one plus this one, have to equal 180. If it doesn't equal 180, you did something incorrectly, you need to double check it. So that is your triangle sum theorem. So what you're going to do is you're going to finish the other two. I'm going to give you a hint on this one. It's still the same process, but now you have some variables involved. So for this one, I'll get you set up and you're going to finish it. You're going to add the three angles. So we're going to add 2x plus 25 plus 8x plus 35. And we said it's always 180. So you need to equal it to 180. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to combine like terms. And then solve for x. Once you get x, that is your answer. So I set it up, you need to finish it. And the same thing here, you're going to go through. Remember, we are looking for x, but first to find x, you have to figure out what this guy is first. So it's really those three together, but here's a hint, a straight line equals 180 degrees. So then, once you get this guy, then you can go ahead and solve for x. So try those, and then make sure you're asking for help if needed. And that is how you classify triangles by angles, or classify the triangles by the angle measure or by the side length, and also the angle sum theorem, which says that all triangles need to interior angles equal 180 degrees.